Okay, so God gave me another quick analogy on sin and why God tells us not to do certain things and everything related to that. Now, I say God gave it to me because I think it's a good analogy and I want to credit God with the good ideas I have because they're really all from Him anyway. And without God, I wouldn't be having them and I wouldn't be alive. So, that being said, analogy isn't perfect, but sin, God telling you don't do this thing because it'll have this consequence, is like a father or a mother telling their child, hey, don't touch that hot stove because it's gonna hurt, right? So now if the child disobeys the parent and touches the hot stove, they will burn their hand. Now, it's not because they touch it that the parent burns their hand. It's not that the child disobeys, touches the hot stove, nothing happens, and then the parent burns their hand. That's not it at all. In the same way with sin, it's not like God just tells us to not do it, and then we disobey Him, nothing happens, and then He punishes us for disobeying Him. He's telling us not to do it because He loves us. In the same way that you don't want your child to burn their hand, and so you tell them not to touch the hot stove because you love them and you don't want them to burn their hand. And if they touch the hot stove, their hand will get burned, right? And so that's the same thing with sin. When we sin, when we disobey God, it burns. It has a consequence. Now that doesn't mean that He still doesn't. It doesn't mean that He doesn't love us anymore. He still loves us. And so, if we turn back to Him and say, "I'm sorry, I should have listened to you," He'll be like, "It's okay. Here's a bandage. Here's some ice. Here's some, burn healing salve, and we're gonna be fine, right?" But it's out of love that God tells us to not do certain things. And just like the hot stove, it's the consequence of doing it that hurts. Not just God punishing us. And in the same way that if a child turns back to their parents and apologizes, turns back to them, the parent should lovingly forgive them and help them, right? And that's what God does. So there's a quick analogy. I hope that helps.